Hello, Braveheart. Welcome to Fit and Free. I'm ZGALA, aka Aunt Angel, and I'm going to do some stretches. I invite you to join me to whatever degree feels good in your body. I like to remind everyone there's not one way. You don't have to wear a special outfit or build yourself a dome. Even though I did and I do, this isn't my yoga outfit, but it's going to do. That's the point. I am going to do some stretching sitting down. The lighting in here is gorgeous, isn't it? I'm going to try to stay in frame, but also just keeping with my usual, look, leaves. Got some pretty leaves going on in here for some art that I have planned. I haven't got to yet, but they are pretty, aren't they? Anyway, I like to remind you, there's not one way. Make sure you listen to your own body. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and don't do anything you don't want to do, because it's probably two different lists. I'm just going to warm up those ankles a little bit. Keeping it real informal today, you might have noticed. Shaking out these legs. I'm going to do some forward folding. So first, bringing my attention into the sits bones. And I like to flap the feet like this to kind of stretch out through the legs and check in the alignment. You could do one at a time and both together, and just sort of notice how the legs are seating in the hips, whether there's more or less tension in one side and the other, and how everything's lining up. Not to judge, just to notice and see if there's some extra stretching or moving in a certain direction, or maybe adjusting your pillow at your desk or something that might help everything go more better. I'm going to do some forward folding because it's been a while since I did that. And I want to point out that I'm going to be folding from the hips, which is different from the waist. Actually, I'll be rounding from the waist. Let's try that just to kind of feel the difference. Feels good to just sort of release through the low back, and can pull back in the abdomen and really round. And you could do that more toward the forward or more toward the backward. That was not articulated well, but you know what I mean. But for forward folding, I'm going to be going from the hips, which is a much different stretch. It just feels much different in the body. It's engaging the backs of the legs here. It's focusing on a long spine, and we'll be alternating that in order to get more stretch. But this first forward fold, I'm pulling the toes back just a little bit. You don't have to, but if you want to engage a little bit more, and you can put your hands on your legs wherever is comfortable, all the way out on the toes if you like. But the point is, again, to be shifting from the hip, not from a lot. I see a lot of people bend from the waist, and you're not going to get nearly the same stretch if you go from the waist as you will if you go from the hips. So forward folding, I'm aiming my chin for my toes. I'm pulling back in those toes a little bit. And I'm giving it a whole, at least one breath, really 3 to 5 breaths. You can feel, if you breathe in, and then on the exhale, you'll feel a lot more stretch happen. And then just stay there and hold. You can back off it a little bit if you like. Breathing in again, I like to say breathing into wherever there's tension. So for me, that's kind of the back of my knees right now. I'm going to breathe into that area. Kind of fill that with my breath. It lessens that, and then deepen that stretch a little bit more. And then from here again, I'm going to breathe into wherever I feel tension. For me, that's still in the back of my knees and in my low back a little bit. So breathing in, filling that area, holding, maybe even breathing in a little bit more. And then relaxing into that stretch. I used to be a massage therapist, and I would help people move through this range of motion stretching. And it is amazing how much more stretch your body is capable of doing if you give it a little time and patience and work with the way your muscles work, which is a tension and release kind of kind of thing with the breath. So I'm going to do one more, breathing in and releasing, and then I'm going to round the spine as I was talking about earlier. Now aiming my forehead for my knees, just rounding, relaxing. I'm not forcing anything here. I'm just trying to invite release. And then I'm going to roll on up nice and slow, just checking in with the spine, stacking it, sort of pulling it up from the shoulders all the way down through the tailbone. Coming back, you can bounce out those knees. Let's try that again. Today's focus going to be forward folding. Apparently I hadn't planned on that, but that's what it's turning into. So this time maybe starting from a little bit deeper position. Again, pulling the toes back, using the hands just gently for torque and or support. I'm pulling gently so that I can, and I'm also relaxing in the belly, really trying to bring my belly toward my thighs basically, and folding in the hips. Aiming my chin for my toes and my toes a little bit back for my chin. Breathing into that wherever there's tension, and then just releasing, still aiming chin for toes. Pulling if you can use the arms either on the feet or on the legs to sort of pull the torso forward and out of the hip socket. That gives even more room for that stretch. Breathing in. And then releasing. Breathing in. I'm really breathing into the back there because I start to feel tension, and then releasing. Again, wherever you feel tension is where you want to just breathe into. See if you can feel how that releases that tension when you literally can feel the breath come into the cells where you're feeling that tension. Let me know in the comments if you can feel that. Breathing in. And then rolling, folding down, rounding down. And this time I'm going to reach out past the feet if possible and come up with a relatively flat back. Looking up at the hands, giving a little bit of a counter stretch here, opening the hands if that feels good. It feels good to me. Trying to find stability there through the hips. You can use those feet to sort of anchor and hook onto the floor there. Bringing those hands down behind and chin back down to find just a nice point of lift through the body. I'm going to shake those feet out. I'm going to do some single-sided stretching now. Still trying my best to stay in frame here. I'm going to bring the left palm of foot, I like to call it, up toward the groin as far as is comfortable, keeping both sits bones on the floor, and I'm pushing this knee, this bended knee now down toward the floor, still keeping this straight leg as aligned as possible in the hip socket. And I'm going to forward fold the body over this arrangement, similar to what I did before, but now I have this knee pressing down and folded in, and that changes the alignment of the hips quite a bit. For me, that brings a lot of the stretch into the low back. Again, I encourage you to just notice where it is in your body. My body varies day to day, year to year. All our bodies are different, and that's a beautiful thing. So make sure you're comparing yourself to yourself, not to anybody else, when you're working on getting to know and love yourself better. I'm gently just pulling, you might notice, with my hand as I eke into this stretch. And now I'm going to do some breathing, deep breathing, breath into wherever I feel tension, and then releasing into this stretch like I did before. Breathing in. Increasing that stretch into wherever I feel tension again, and then stopping there, holding there for a few, like a breath or two. You shouldn't be super uncomfortable there. Hold at a place where it's just slight tension, like 4% is a prime spot to aim for, past where you're comfortable, you know, not where you're grimacing or making an ugly face or having a, like where you can actually feel the tension but then release it. So back off of it if you need to get to that place, and then breathe in into that tension, and then releasing again, a little bit more stretch. For me, this bent knee starts to want to make the hips slide out of alignment, so I'm really focusing right now on pulling this bent leg hip forward a little bit and pulling this straight leg hip back a little bit so that I can try to keep my hips aligned. I encourage you to just notice what's going on in your body and pick something that feels good and work on that for you. I noticed looking that my spine is getting rounded there. So again, I'm going to breathe in to where I feel tension, which for me is still over in this low back and now in the groin area and a little bit in the back of this leg. Breathing into all of that. And then releasing into that stretch a little bit more. And just rounding down toward that knee. Still pressing this other knee toward the floor. Still squaring the hips a little bit. And then I'm going to roll up. Keeping the spine rounded, coming up one at a time. Let's unfold that knee and bounce those knees out. Give them a nice loving rub. And then I'm going to bring this other palm of foot up. I'm going to have to move my pillow fort. Let's move those out of the way a little bit more. There we go. And bringing the other foot in toward the groin, pressing this knee down. Again, squaring the hips, trying to find a like a cognizant awareness of where they are in space and bringing them into an alignment. For me, this again varies greatly. My two hips are not the same, and also I haven't treated them the same over time, and I still don't. So I encourage you to just notice how your body is in that regard, and there's no right or wrong way to it. It's just a matter of where you're at now and noticing, giving yourself some love where you are, and encouraging some letting go. I'm gonna again forward fold over the straight leg. I can feel that my body's sort of torquing that way, so I'm gonna do some adjusting. Bring those hips more square. And pressing this knee toward the floor. Trying to bring the torso square over this leg and space. Keeping those hips squared. Again, I notice quite a difference between my two sides here. I'm just giving that a couple breaths to just relax into itself. Just noticing. Before then I'm going to breathe into anywhere I feel tension and release into that deeper stretch. Coming to wherever I feel some tension starting to stop me, and then stopping there and breathing into that. At first, just sort of passively, and then I'm going to actively take a breath into wherever there's tension. And stretch further into that. And again, breathing into where there's tension. And releasing into that. Pulling this toe back a little bit to add to the stretch there. It's interesting, I'm noticing I don't feel the same tension in my low back on this side as I do on the other side. Tells me my hips are probably pretty out of alignment and I could do some extra stretching. So it's a good thing I'm doing what I'm doing here. I'm gonna breathe into that again. I'm trying to pull a little bit more just to explore where that tension is that I was feeling on the other side. On this side, just noticing how different they are. And I'm gonna pull this hip back and just kind of playing with some of that. See how that feels on the inside. You can pull the straight side hip back a little bit. In fact, you see what I'm doing now is adding some twist. So let's go ahead and do that from here. I'm doing that because it feels good. I encourage you to explore what feels good in your body and just gently do that. Coming down into that forward fold again. And coming up. I'm going to shake that out. I'm going to bring the other leg back up and do a little more exploring of that twisting, since I noticed such a difference there. So bringing this leg back up, pressing this hip down. Now that I have the other side to compare to again, just noticing how this side is different. And this time I'm going to bring left hand to right leg, wherever's comfortable. You don't have to go all the way to the foot if that is uncomfortable to you, but finding somewhere that's comfortable for some twisting torque. I'm noticing a big difference in the two sides here, so I'm just both exploring that and also encouraging a little more evening out. So I'm gonna again pull this long leg hip forward and pulling, oh, I got a nice pop there, pulling this bent leg back a little bit more, because that feels now like it's more in alignment. I'm not sure, I'm not looking in the mirror. You could probably tell more than me from looking at me, but again, I encourage you to feel into your own body. It's not a right or a wrong way, really. It's just about the relationship with yourself, with your body. Adding more to that stretch, and then coming on down. Just gonna relax into that for a breath or two, because I'm feeling a lot of different release in this side through my shoulder, through my arm. Just noticing all of that and just letting it go, just trying to release that, relax that. Sometimes a little jiggling helps. And then coming back up, I'm going to do another stretch on the other side again, just to keep things as even as possible. Bringing this other leg up. And this time I'm going to do without the twist, since I did a twist the first time. And again, just noticing how the two sides are similar or the same. I actually do feel a little more stretch now on this side since I did that. Just pulling into that stretch a little bit. Just trying to invite the body to release and relax and work well together, both sides, top and bottom. Come back up, shake those out. Let's add a little bit of spinal rolling and maybe a little abdominal work here while we're on the floor. I like to start with just a little bit of balancing. This is a nice way, if you're gonna watch television, you could get on the floor, use the television as a prompt, put down a carpet or a towel if you have hard floor, and then just practice seeing where your points of balance is. You can get silly. I like to clap your hands, except for make it your feet. Roll around on the floor a little bit is good for you, especially if you don't do it often. And then these are spinal rolls. There's a lot of variations. You can hold on the inside of your feet or on the outside of your legs or on the inside. You can hold on the thighs more. But the point is to roll on the spine and just notice where it articulates. It gives yourself a nice little massage if you got a nice little carpet like I do here. and sort of wakes up the spine. You can get as silly as you like. You can come on up into a shoulder stand from there if you want to get more fancy about it. That was a pretty sloppy shoulder stand. It's kind of one of my specialties. Again, I encourage you to just play around on the floor more. I think humanity's gonna get a lot better when we start doing that more. And then some great just abdominal work that can be as passive or as unpassive as you like is from here. You can do a lot with a little. So I encourage you to play with that. I have not been doing them and I'm feeling it. I've been doing some stuff, but not those. I also like to just hang here, like hang my shoulders off of my feet. So it gives me a little bit of abdominal work, and then I'm stretching through those shoulders, just sort of releasing in the belly. Again, you can bend these knees and get as silly as you like. I encourage you to just stretch out those shoulders, stretch out the legs. Just play around. That's my 2 cents for today. There you have it. From me to you. Permission to play. That was longer than I expected it to be. Thank you for stopping by. Thanks for being you and letting me be me. Don't forget to stay curious and courageous and fit and free. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, why don't you? I'll be seeing you. Ciao for now.